I don't know if you know this about me or not, but when I decided to leave the corporate world, one of the first things that I did was to pursue something that I always wanted to pursue, and that was acting. It was just because I love speaking in public, I love standing on stage, and I thought that acting would help me to make this even better, my speaking skills even better. So I went to study acting for a couple of years. I did some short films that were even on television over here in Italy, and hosted some live events, did some commercials, voiceover work. It was such a great experience. As a matter of fact, sometimes people ask me for suggestions. You know, people who want to overcome shyness, or they just want to learn how to speak in public and you know, stand up in front of a group of people. They ask me, you know, what I suggest, and one of the things that I suggest is taking acting classes. It's just such a great experience. It helps you to grow. Anyway, the real reason that I wanted to make this video is because I wanted to talk to you about something that's really, really, for me, it was really, really profound. And I was in an acting class once. It was more of a motivational type acting class. It was really one of those acting classes to get you off your butt and say, you know, if you want to do this, then do it, you know. Anyway, really, really good class. And the guy named Bernard Hiller. And I remember there was an exercise that we did that he had us do. And there were two people involved in the exercise. So the first thing that he asked us to do was, he said, I want you to think of someone to whom you always wanted to tell something, but you never did. And this person could be someone who's living or someone who's not living anymore. It doesn't matter. But I want everybody to think of a person like that. And so I thought who this would be for me. And that person was my mother. Anyway, so he said, okay, this is what we're going to do. He said, now, he set up 3 chairs, you know, not too much of a distance from each other. 1 chair here and 2 chairs right here. 1 chair behind the other one on this side. And so he said, I need a volunteer to go first. So this guy raised his hand, and he said, okay. He said, I want you to go sit here. He said, now who's the person that you would like to say whatever you need to say? Who would you like to talk to? And he said, my girlfriend. He said, okay. Who in the class, there was about 15 of us in the class. He said, who in the class do you think looks most like your girlfriend? And he said, that girl right there. He said, okay, you come sit right here. And then the teacher sat behind the girl. And he said, okay, go. And he told him, he said, start telling her whatever it is you want to tell her that you never told her before. And so it was deep, because he was telling her that he cheated on her once. And so the teacher was sitting behind her, and he was kind of hiding behind her, and he was suggesting and telling her how to answer him whenever he talked to her. You know, it was so powerful. And they both started crying. He was crying because he realized what he did, and he was so sorry about it. And she was really playing the part, and she was really in this character, and she was like crying, and they were both crying, and everybody was crying. You know, it was really deep. And then after that, another couple went, and then it was my turn. And he said, so who's the person you want to talk to? He said, go sit down. I sat down there. He said, who's the person? I said, it was my mother. He said, oh, who could play your mother in this group? I said, that lady right there. He said, okay. So she went over and she sat down, and he sat down behind her. He said, okay, Tony, go. And I started telling my mom some things that I always wanted to tell her, and they had to do with her behavior towards me. And it was so deep, and I was so into telling her this. And he was obviously giving this lady the right responses, because I was really interacting. I was so into it. And one of the things that he had always criticized me for, he said, Tony, you need to get out of your own way. If you want to be a good actor, you got to let go. Just let go. He said, you were in the military, you played football, and I'm just guessing that those are all things that you did, and they always taught you that real men don't cry. He said, just let yourself go. Get out of your own way. Let yourself experience your feelings. And so I was so into this, and I was hoping, and I'll tell you, I was hoping, and I hoped in a lot of different classes I was in, that I would be able to get emotional and cry, you know? So anyway, after we got finished, after I told my mother everything that I wanted to tell her in this scene, he got up and and I was still so focused on this girl, on this lady. And I was sitting there and I was just looking at her and I was still into it. And he got up and my eyes didn't move. And he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, now let me guess. He said, Tony Smith, he said, you're probably thinking, everybody else went before me, they cried. And you probably think your performance wasn't that good because you didn't cry. He said, I want you to look around to everybody. And I looked and about 70% of the class was crying, had tears going down their cheeks. To show you, he said, you don't have to necessarily cry to be powerful and be a powerful actor. But anyway, that was the exercise that we went to. But here's the kicker. Here was the most powerful part for me. When I went to sleep that night, I got up to go to the bathroom early in the morning, or late, actually it was like 5 or 6 in the morning. And when I went back to bed, I started thinking about that conversation that I should have with my mother. And I started thinking about that conversation. And that's when I started crying. It was so powerful. But the most powerful thing was when I decided really to have that conversation with my mother. And I told her all the things that I always wanted to tell her, that I'd never told her before. And she told me why she behaved that way. And I finally understood. And I didn't criticize her for that anymore. But the most powerful thing was that a year after that conversation that I had live with my mother, she passed away. And so sometimes I wonder, what would things be like? That I would have held that inside of me if I hadn't told her that, if I had never had that conversation. And so why am I telling you this story? Because life is too short. Because we don't know what's going to happen. Some people say, well, I'm going to put that off and I'll do it next year. Well, I'm going to talk to that person now whenever I get around to it, whenever I feel like it. What I'm here to tell you is don't wait, because you don't know how much time you're going to have. So if you got to talk to that person, talk to them now. Don't put it off. If you got something that you want to do it now. Don't wait. If you have that dream that you always wanted to try to realize, do it now. Because you don't know how much time you have left. See what I'm saying? I'm so grateful for that experience. And I'm so glad that I talked to my mother. So I'm going to leave you with this question. Is there somebody that you want to talk to? Somebody that you want to tell something that you've never told? And if so, when are you going to do it?